It's Infinite List time. Another day, another request. Be'lakor, Neither Shape Nor Shadow, requested by Venator and Marcus. First time reaction, can't wait. I think that this band has proven themselves incredible so far, and also it's been forever since I reacted to Be'lakor, so I'm long overdue. Before I check it out, subscribe, give this video a like, follow my socials, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Just click the Linktree link in the description below. Also join my Patreon if you want bonus content and the option to make a song request and guarantee a reaction to it right away. That'll also be linked down below. Alright, Be'lakor, Neither Shape Nor Shadow. I'm excited, man. I'm excited. Let's dive in. Starting out very melodic. All right, make the guitar sing. Man, that's some galloping guitar work. Feels very anthemic. Okay, I just have to say, this feels very different from the recent Be'lakor that I've been listening to. Like some of the more recent stuff that I reacted to months and months ago. Specifically songs like Hidden Window and Foothold and The Smoke of Many Fires. Actually, I could see a little bit when I think about the more melodic parts of The Smoke of Many Fires. I can hear a little bit, an inkling of what I'm hearing in this song. And of course, this is from their debut album. This came out before. So I guess they started out a little bit more on the melodic side and eventually became heavier. Or maybe this album just has a lot to offer, a lot of variation in terms of musicality and tone. That's very possible as well. The only other song that I've heard off this particular record, and I also reacted to it if you want to go look it up, is The Desolation of Ares. So far, it's caught me by surprise, but in a pleasant way, and I am appreciating the guitar. When the drumming came in, it became like a cool vibe, I would say. I haven't heard any vocals yet, so I don't know exactly where the song is going. Tonally, I don't know what to expect because it started out with more melody, but it keeps me guessing, keeps me on the edge of my seat. So I like that. Let's get back into it. All right. There's those harshes that I love. It feels like the tuning on the guitar is higher than I expected also. Not a bad thing. Just an observation. Alright, we're building up to something. I'm invested. Alright, that's more like it. Man, this guitar work is really catchy. There's a definite groove to the guitar here that I have never really heard in any other Be'lakor songs. Like, I gotta say, this feels different. And to me, that's all owed to how the guitar sounds. And again, that's not a bad thing. It's just, it's like a continual surprise as the song goes on. Like, when the vocals kicked in, I'm like, okay, now this feels a bit more like what I've heard previously with Be'lakor. Like the harshes are still there. They're still on point. But the fact that this feels tonally a little bit different, I like it, but it also means that I can't predict where it's going to go. And of course, that's always a great thing for a reactor. But yeah, this it leaves me feeling a little bit off balance, because I don't know exactly where the buildup ends and where the payoff begins. Like, I still feel like we're building up to something even bigger, but I'm not sure. So I feel really like just not knowing what to think here, like where the song is going to go from here. So it's as intriguing as it is a little frustrating, I have to admit. But I'm enjoying it though. I'm here for it. Let's keep going. I'm on this journey, but I can't see what the end looks like. See, they keep throwing surprises at me. This part reminds me of something. Alright, I like that drumming. Very textured. This feels like a thread that's just unspooling almost faster than I can keep up with it. Like, it's hard to explain how I'm feeling about this song. I'm trying to put it into words as best that I can, but I just... anytime I feel like I've got the song figured out, it throws another surprise my way. Like, it's all over the place in a very good and very creative way, especially in terms of the guitar itself. But yeah, I don't know where the song is going. Like, it feels like this song has a much looser and much more complex structure than what I usually hear from Be'lakor. Like, after hearing The Smoke of Many Fires, and then when I reacted to Hidden Window and Foothold, with those two songs, I could already kind of predict the basic structure of the songs, like where they were going to go. They still had their own kinds of surprises for me, and they still like really blew my mind. But I felt like I had more of a handle on how to approach the song, like what my expectations should be. With this one, I just feel really like in the wind. Like I just don't know what to think. So it's just, again, it's keeping me on the edge of my seat, just really catching me off guard again and again. And of course I like that, but I'm a control freak, so it's also a little bit frustrating too. And one other thing I wanted to say, I'm going to get back to the music in a second, I swear. One other thing I wanted to say, though, this might be controversial, but certain parts of this make me think of like old school, like very heavy sounding metalcore. They just do. Like parts of it remind me of like Heaven Shall Burn, for example. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, that's a compliment. I don't know how you guys are going to feel about it, but that's a vibe that I'm getting also. But I am enjoying this song. It's different, but I like different. So let's keep it up. Man, it just keeps shifting in tone. The rhythm on the song is insane. It goes from groovy and catchy to like epic and heavy. It's a collision of different elements. A little synth in there, huh? All right. This song is throwing me for a loop. Okay, I gotta talk about this. But I mean, that's kind of the point. This is a reaction. But let me put it this way. Very rarely have I come away from a song with so much to say and so little of a clue as to how to say it. But here's the thing. I think I put my finger on exactly why this song was throwing me off so much. And I think it was because it went through so many emotional and tonal shifts. Like, the structure was, like, loose enough where, like, again, you had parts that were very hooky, very groovy, and then parts that were very, like, epic and just, like, almost Amon Amarth-esque in a way. And then you had parts that felt very, like, very metalcore-ish. Like, and then you had parts that felt very almost sad and melancholy. It went through so many different feelings and so many different sounds. And don't get me wrong, it did feel cohesive. Like, it did feel like one song. But this one was... There's a certain type of song structure that makes a song feel like it's all over the place, even though it's really, like, it's musically correct. It's well done. But it still feels like it's instrumentally firing off in all different directions, and so much so, and at such rapid of a rate, that it's hard for me to, like, grab onto something, musically speaking, and, you know, really sink my teeth into it before it just suddenly shifts and then goes in another new direction, and then I have to, like, try and process that very quickly. And I'll put it this way, I'm very bad at multitasking, so I think that's partly why songs like that, they kind of throw me off a little bit, and they kind of leave me feeling a little bit off balance, even as I'm enjoying them. Like with Hidden Window, especially, that's a song that I've been really playing quite a bit over the past couple of weeks. That's a song that stays in the same tone and stays in the same kind of general area of sound for long enough that I can kind of headbang to it and really just be in the moment rather than having to like quickly jump from one sound to another in my mind. I feel like I'm doing a really bad job at explaining this, and that's annoying me too, because I'm usually very eloquent and very adept at breaking down a song musically, I think, when I do these reactions. But with this one, this is a challenging song for me. It's challenging for me to discuss it, and it was challenging to listen to. And that makes me even more intrigued. And don't get me wrong, I really did like this song. But it was a little all over the place for me, I will say that. Objectively, though, it was a very well-made song, very well done. I will say, in the criticism department, this isn't really even a criticism so much as it's an observation, but this did feel a little bit more rough around the edges in terms of the music and in terms of the production, and that makes sense. This was their debut album. That it should feel that way. They were still finding themselves, still finding their sound, and they ended up becoming fucking epic, as we all know, if their newest material is any indication. But it feels a little bit not as crisp in terms of the production, and maybe there is a little bit of a lack of cohesion in this song. Maybe that's a criticism that I should make, in my opinion. I feel like there was not one single tone at the core of the song that kind of tied all the various parts together in a good way. I don't know what it is with this song, man. Maybe you guys can like let me know in the comments why this is like throwing me off this way. Because I don't remember feeling this way about The Desolation of Ares, but this has like so much varying melody and so many different things happening guitar-wise. The only thing that really was a through line in the song, the thing that really was consistent, I would say, was the vocals. The harshes are always really good when it comes to Be'lakor. Always excellent, I should say. And this song was no different. So that was really what I found myself latching onto, because everything else felt so wild and so all over the place. Like, as soon as I got into like, okay, this guitar part here is really groovy, I'm going to like just let my mind be hooked onto this part, just let the guitar carry me away. But then right away it changed, and all of a sudden we have like a more of a galloping kind of power metal type of anthemic sound. And then it changes again, and it becomes more like epic, and it feels like we're heading toward a climax. But it's a false climax, because then it changes again and reorients itself. So it was hard for me to like really stay with this song in my mind, and really latch onto the feelings that it was putting out there, because there was just such a multitude of tone and emotion, and the structure was so readily shifting. So hopefully I've elucidated well enough how I feel about the music here. And I hope that I, have stated, boldly and strongly enough that I do like this song. It's just that this one was harder for me to get into, whereas every other Be'lakor song that I've reacted to so far has been very easy for me to get into, and I've been able to just get lost in the music. With this one, it was a bit more of a challenge, and I like a challenge, but that's my real feeling on the music. So it's complicated, just as the song was complicated. But objectively speaking, it was a very well done song. Subjectively speaking, it's not going to be my favorite, but this really was the very first song that they did. So yeah, that's pretty much all I can say about the music. I did like it, and I think that with re-listens, this one will probably grow on me a bit more, and I'll maybe be able to get a better handle on all the instrumentation at work and be able to better appreciate it with more listens. So I'm going to add it on one of my playlists, and I'll re-listen to it tonight, and I'll see what I think. And maybe I'll update my opinion on the music in a comment or something like that. But as of a first listen, that's what I think about the music. Now let's get to the lyrics. In the space of one night's darkness, they have gathered, somehow drawn, to where sand and water meet, to the place where nature mourns. An army of 1,000 souls, moved not by force of law, but by an end of which they dreamt, returns to wade once more. In the shallows but a prelude to the greatest icy depths, where neither shape nor shadow can persist in one who stepped. Their unseeing eyes surveying darkened scenes within their minds, now blissful, soon will falter, laying bare what now it hides. Once submerged, they may awaken, briefly grasping moonlit skies, but a crescent moon accompaniment merely ushers in the tide. Beneath horizons megalithic, rays of light's first wonder shall reveal an ashen shoreline strewn with the prints of those pulled under. Man, that almost feels like reading a poem. And in this particular genre, it kind of should be that way. But that one in particular, it kind of just rolls off the tongue. It's very enjoyable just to recite that, verbally speaking. Like, these guys, and this goes to show you, even on their first record, they always excelled in the lyrics department. Like, this is well written. It just is. So this feels like, at first I thought that it was something strictly otherworldly. Like fantasy-based, something like that. But the lyrics use such worldly terms to describe what's happening. So, first of all, this is probably a story that is historically or mythologically themed, because I'm looking on Metal Archives, and this is the first track off the album, The Frail Tide, and it comes right before The Desolation of Ares, which I've already reacted to once again. So this is probably connected to that song, and likely leads into it somehow, in terms of its theme. But I feel like this could be about what I call residual spirituality, which is basically an echo of someone who was here on this earth but has long since died. And so it's a spiritual energy-based memory of that person, going through the motions and replaying the role that the person did while they were still alive. And I think that's what's happening when it comes to a lot of perceived hauntings in the real world. And there's tons of anecdotal information to back this up. But anyway, I think that this is about some great war that was fought, because it refers to an army of 1,000 souls. And that battle is replaying itself again on the spiritual plane. And I was actually going to reference things like war when it comes to things that leave a spiritual mark or imprint on a location. Like, when I mentioned anecdotal evidence of residual hauntings, one great example is the Battle of Gettysburg. And so many people have claimed to have had encounters at that site, of seeing soldiers who are dying, or who actually communicate with them, asking them for water. I think that some things invoke so much violence or horror or power that it leaves a kind of spiritual wound on the earth. And I believe that Earth and nature itself has a spiritual energy to it. So some people might find that odd, but it's something that's always made sense to me. And the reason that I do think that there's a spiritual element to this is because the lyrics go out of their way to say, "Move not by force of law, but by an end of which they dreamt." And then returns to wade once more. So they aren't moved by the laws of physics. They're moved by the echo of the will that they once had when they were still alive. And they return to wade into battle once more. And over and over and over again, the cycle repeats, and this great battle just reverberates across the spiritual plane. And I think that the greatest icy depths, where neither shape nor shadow can persist in one who stepped, I think that refers to the oblivion of death. Like, think about it. I envision a cold, dark abyss when I read that line. And when someone leaves their physical body, leaves this earth, they have neither shape nor shadow. It can't persist in something that is void, something that can't give form to anything physical. Shape and shadow, these are physical concepts. These are parameters we use to define existence in the material world. And these are people whose consciousness has crossed a threshold, right? They leave their bodies behind, and they leave an energy behind that just echoes again and again and again. And this verse I find really interesting because it explores an aspect of that I hadn't really considered, actually. It says, "Once submerged, they may awaken, briefly grasping moonlit skies, but a crescent moon accompaniment merely ushers in the tide." So the spirits of these warriors might briefly realize what's happening. They might have a moment of lucidity and realize where they are. But when the moonlight, which I take to be a metaphor for the illumination of knowledge, the moonlight dwindles, it becomes a crescent moon, and the tide of void washes back over them again. That's really fascinating to consider, actually. Like, does a remnant or copy or echo of a living being know that it's a copy? Like, which is the real consciousness of that person? Is it the spirit that appears on the earth, or the part of them that left this plane of existence when they died? Or does consciousness end? See, that's why I'm fucking weird, because these are the kind of questions I think about. I don't think about what I'm going to eat for dinner or what I'm doing tomorrow. I think about this shit. But, you know, it makes for one hell of a song. And also, it's like, can you imagine a more horrifying prospect? Like, you briefly awaken only to learn that you're cursed to repeat the most horrific moment of your life over and over in perpetuity. And the album title is called, you know, The Frail Tide, and the song does use tidal waves and water and the moon's effect on water to talk about what's happening here. So there has to be some kind of through line that ties all the songs together on this album. So maybe this is just the first chapter in that story, but it's an intriguing way to begin. And going back to the mythology aspect, since this song seems to deal with cycle and repetition, and since the next song talks about Ares, this could also be touching upon the cyclical nature of mythology itself, and you know, how the Greek and Roman pantheons, and also human figures like ancient warriors, how they get interpreted and reinterpreted across time. Like, if you look at history, different gods and warriors had different aspects and attributes, and meant different things depending on the time period. Like, Hecate was personified in one way at one point, and then completely differently hundreds of years later. Ancient people and ancient rulers often had divergent interpretations of these figures, and scholars had whole new interpretations of them centuries later. So it's what we're left with are remnants, remains that we see how we choose to see them. And the closing verse seems to allude to that. It says, "Beneath horizons megalithic, rays of light's first wonder shall reveal an ashen shoreline strewn with the prints of those pulled under." Again, very poetic, rolls off the tongue. Yeah, like, since people first sat around a fire and told stories, those stories were always rooted in the memories and the things left behind by other people, other figures that came before and left something to be talked about. So the song could be dealing with that also. It's just musically, like, this one is going to be complicated for me to process. It was complicated enough for me to talk about and try and find a good way to give voice to the very, very multifaceted feeling and impression that I got after hearing it. So I hope that I did it justice in breaking it down, and I will be listening to this one again and again. But it was interesting, it was good, and as it should do, it leaves me wanting more Be'lakor. So leave a request in the comments, or jump on Patreon, jump on Tier 4, and you can make a request and get a reaction to it right away. But until next time, that's all I've got for you guys. Can't wait to explore more about this band, and it's good to be back. Much love and respect to the Nuclear family. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, and I will catch you all next time.